I have cried so many tears because of my business. It's hard to start a business, and it is so fulfilling. It's crazy to think that the world hasn't been doing impact first businesses always. Like, it is the way to do business, in my opinion. No one's going to steal your idea. You're not even going to do your own idea. You think they are more passionate about your idea than you are? Talk about it, get feedback, and then do it. Jump in with 2 feet, go for it, figure it out.
Welcome to the Do Good Show, where I'm on a mission to share the stories of entrepreneurs and leaders who build businesses with the intent to do good. These are innovative, successful companies creating meaningful impact in the world, proving that purpose and profit can exist together. Today, I'm really excited to introduce Ryan Smith, the founder and CEO of Recyclops. Ryan is a proud husband and father of 4 kids. He's passionate about many things. He's passionate about traveling. He speaks English, Russian, Spanish, and Portuguese. He is also passionate about sustainability and business impact, which is why he founded Recyclops, a platform that's focused on sustainability, primarily by keeping things out of the landfill. So they do this in 2 primary ways. One, they leverage the gig economy with contractors. They use their own vehicles to do recycling pickups. And then they also work with enterprises on specialty collection programs. This spans from solar panels to industrial quantities of plastic waste, all the way down to their partnership with Diaper, D-Y-P-E-R. Did you know that 1 diaper can contain as much plastic as 3 water bottles? That's why they partnered with Diaper to collect dirty diapers and compost them. So they collect diapers from people's doorsteps and in a matter of weeks turn those diapers into dirt. I'm really stoked to be here with Ryan. Ryan, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, fun question to get us started. You are an extensive traveler. Do you have a favorite foreign country?
That's a good question. I love Mexico.
Yeah?
I love
Cool.
Mexico. I love Mexicans. I love Mexico. Really enjoy Brazil as well. Brazil is also a favorite, but I think Mexico's the
Yeah.
favorite. Mexico's really convenient to get to, and they have cool ruins, cool beaches, really cool history, really incredible warm people, and really entrepreneurial. I love the entrepreneurial spirit of Mexico. There's a culture of entrepreneurship where you see people don't make excuses. They get
Yeah.
things done. Like, I remember being in Mexico, me and my wife were talking about this concept and seeing a guy who had probably like a 5-year-old. It was late at night, like 9 at night, and they had a 9-year-old or something, an 8-year-old, who knows, big kid in like a kid carrier, asleep on their back where they were out like hustling on the street, like doing like street vendor stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like people in the United States would say, I can't because I have this kid and I need to be home and they need to be in bed. Dude, the hustle culture and that entrepreneurial spirit in Mexico, it's inspiring.
Yeah. Scrappy is the word I think of.
Scrappy. Great word choice. Yep,
Yeah.
amen.
Let's go back to the beginning. Take us back to the start of Recyclops. Where were you when the idea for Recyclops first hit, and what was the problem you set out to solve?
Yeah, so I saw this problem for Cyclops first. I had just been living in Russia. I did my freshman year of college at BYU, Brigham Young University. I then took 2 years off and did a church service mission. So I went to Russia for 2 years, and then I came home and moved off campus into this apartment. And I don't remember doing a lot of recycling in Russia, but honestly, I didn't really necessarily expect to do a lot of recycling in Russia. But in the United States of America, I just I grew up recycling. I felt like I'm an Eagle Scout. I grew up like really thinking about these things and not even realizing that I like cared about them necessarily. But it really hit when I moved into an apartment off campus and I remember I bought a Sprite on campus from a vending machine. Drank it on my way home, and then I went to go put it in the recycling in my apartment. I just moved in. It's like, oh, we don't have a little blue bin in our apartment. Okay, I'll just take it straight out to the dumpster. I go out to that dumpster and there's no recycling dumpster. And I was like, what? And I look around and like, there's none. And so I don't know it's like, what do I do here? I just thought it was odd. And I had taken a class that was a entrepreneurial lecture series. So it's just, random entrepreneurs would come in and tell their story. And one of those entrepreneurs said, keep an idea log, write down any business idea you have. So I wrote down that idea. I wrote down the idea of recycling at apartments that don't have it.
Mhm.
Started poking my head around other apartments as I like go on dates, hang out with friends. I like always poke my head to the dumpster enclosure at these different apartments and saw that my apartment was not unique. At first, I just thought I moved somewhere like super crappy because I kind of did,
Yeah.
but it was not my apartment. It was not the city. I did more research. I saw it wasn't the city I was in. It wasn't the state I was in. It was a national and even a global problem where apartments generally don't have easy access for recycling. At least the majority of apartments in the United States don't. And so I said, I just wrote that down as an idea. And I remember I called my dad. My dad has worked in facilities management throughout his career in, different scopes, but he actually worked overseeing all of the physical facilities at BYU where I was at. And they have their own recycling center. So I was like, oh, he's a perfect guy to call. So I called my dad. I'm like, hey, I think I should start a recycling business. And he said, don't do it. And I didn't do it for 2 years.
Oh.
And then 2 years later, I decided, I really want to start something. I was actually living in Brazil at the time, and I had this eye-opening experience. I was living in Brazil doing an internship for a startup called baby.com.br.
Mhm.
It was a online, e-commerce baby store. And doing this internship, and there were two founders, and they were just normal dudes. They were just like super normal dudes. And they were no smarter than I am. I didn't like meet them and be like, oh my gosh, these are the smartest people I've ever met in the world. I could never do this. It's like, it wasn't that. They were just normal dudes who, yeah, were they intelligent? Definitely. But they had started this business and they were like startup of the year in Brazil. And it's like I was like, what the heck? Man. And it just like opened my eyes to this idea that like, hey, the only reason that I haven't started a business and like they did is because they did it. That's it.
Yeah.
Like it was a decision to go do it. And the only thing stopping me was me. And that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to start something and started fiddling with different ideas, experimenting with different ideas, testing different ideas. And one of those ideas was Recyclops. And after a minute decided, hey, this is the one I want to go after. And, that was in 2012, 2013, something like that. And here we are in 2025 and still rocking and rolling.
So tell us how you got your first customer.
Really, the initial focus was on apartments. I moved home and said, hey, let's bring recycling to these apartments. So I thought it would be relatively easy. I thought I'm going to go get some data from students, show that they want recycling, that they're willing to pay for it, and then I'm going to take that to property managers and show them, and then they'll do it. Well, I found that there was an eco response club at BYU, and they had already done this survey for me. They gave me the data, they gave me
Perfect.
everything. So I started going to apartments and saying, "Hey, look at students say they're willing to pay, blah blah blah," and all of the apartment complex owners were like, "We don't care."
Yeah.
Basically, it was this funny thing where they basically said like, that's not how we think about this. We don't think about this like, oh, the student is willing to pay, because what that means is we have to raise rent. And if I'm raising rent, then I'm not competitive with the apartment next door. And no one is coming to our apartment and saying, "Oh, do you guys have recycling? Oh, you don't? I'm going to go to your neighbor." It's an afterthought.
Yeah.
They don't realize it until they move in. And if you're not competitive, they're not moving in. So like none of the apartments wanted to do this, and even if the students were willing to pay, a few dollars every student, it's like, oh man, that'd be great. Doesn't matter. And they also didn't think about it in this like per door, per student, mindset that I was thinking, oh, every student will pay. And they're like, that's not how this works. Like we have a dumpster outside and we pay $500 a month to get it emptied. and they don't care how many students live here. They empty it when it's full. We get the right size. They pay $500. There's not like a per student, whatever. Like it's like that's not how this works. It's like, oh. And so those were how my first conversations went. And then I started tweaking, trying to figure out, okay, how do I speak their language? I was trying to sell something to an apartment in a different language, basically. They saw utilities in one way and I was pitching it in a different way, and that didn't work. So I started figuring out what that was, and it honestly took a year to figure this out. Like from when I started working on this idea to when I got my first sale, it was a year. And I was doing things like I remember one time I decided, oh, there's a off-campus housing office that really focuses on the non university housing and just in the
Mhm.
area, and they have this catalog, and I thought, man, if that catalog said which apartments do and don't have recycling, it would do a couple things. One, it would show me every apartment I should target, because most of them don't have recycling, but a couple of them do. And two, it would create some guilt around not having it, and it just creates awareness. When an apartment is asked, do you have this, they think, oh man, should we have that? And if their neighbors start having it, they start to consider, should we have that too? And so I went, this is my whole scheme. I go to the off-campus housing office and I'm like, hey, can I talk to who's ever in charge? It's just on a break between classes, or in the morning, I guess, before classes. And they go, oh, no one's in the office today except for me. I'm like, oh, where are they? And they're like, oh, they're at the off-campus housing fair with all of the landlords.
Ah,
And I was like, seems like that's where I want to be. So I was like, oh, where's that? And they're like, oh, it's at this spot. And I said, okay, cool. And I went there. I wasn't invited. I just kind of snuck in. They were all eating lunch. I ate lunch with them, got my free lunch,
scrappy.
and just started like pitching people on this. And then I found out who the organizer was there at the event, and I went up to him and said, "Hey, I'm a student. Here's what I'm doing. I started this business, Recyclops. We do blah blah blah." And they said, "Oh, that's really cool." Blah. And I was like, can I, pitch this to the crowd?" And they're like, "Well, we can't, as the university, we can't show favoritism." So, was there anything I can do? They're like, "Well, you could get up and like tell them that you're a student and you care about recycling and that you know tons of other students do. You have survey data on this, and that there are good solutions for recycling in apartments that solve a lot of their issues. And if they want to learn more about that, they could come talk to you." And so
Oh,
I got up and
that's
pitched that to everyone, and eventually got one of our, probably our third sale from that. Our first sale was I went to housing fair where apartments are at the fair trying to sell housing to students, and I was going to all of the managers trying to sell recycling to them. And I got one who was all in, who was like, a total environmentalist and really wanted to do it. I had a couple apartments that I'd been in talks with for a while, and so I called them up after I got that locked in, and I called up one of the other ones and said, "Hey, the Elms is in. We're starting on this day. Do you guys want to start at the same time?" And they said, "Yeah, let's do it." All I needed was the one, and then like the second one, boom, came. And that's how I started the business. Was really focused on these apartments. It looks very different. It was kind of not kind of. It was more equipment heavy. Like I had to get a truck, and I had to put these like little shed container things at apartments. I had to do all this, which is not how we operate at all
yeah.
now. But that's how we got started, and really got my toe into the space and haven't looked back.
Right. I mean, you've been called the Uber of recycling, even. So, at what point did you change your model and decide that driving a truck around wasn't necessarily a scalable business?
At first I was in a little bit of denial of like, oh yeah, oh if we could just sell apartments, I could get trucks and I could put these little sheds everywhere. But after a couple years saw that like, hey, this isn't growing the way that I want it to grow. I need to come up with a way to do this better, and started fiddling with different business models. In that process, I had a family run business reach out to me in Mapleton, Utah, and they said, "Hey, our city doesn't have recycling. They haven't had it. So 10 years ago, we started this program where we signed up our neighbors. They pay us 10 or 20 bucks a month. We drive around with a Suburban and a trailer and we pick up all their recycling from these bins." So we ended up buying out their business, just like they seller financed it. So, it paid for itself through the acquisition. I didn't have the capital to go and buy it outright
Mhm.
or anything. So I decided that this was the way to go, to try and, after a while said, man, I wonder if I could scale this. This city, Mapleton, like the fact that they didn't have recycling was so weird to me. But that's how I felt when my apartment didn't recycle. And I thought, man, there's no way this place is unique. Started doing research and saw that something like 34 million households in the United States don't have recycling. That's not including apartments. There's another 16 million or so apartments. And so you're like, man, there's 50 million houses total in the US without recycling. 50 million of like 140 million is more or less the numbers right now. Isn't that
Yeah.
mind-boggling? As soon as you leave urban centers, recycling programs start to disappear. They may have like a community drop off, and then apartments don't have it. So it's like the urban center. If you live in like suburbia, you probably have recycling. If you live in like a high rise, you might have recycling. And then if you live on the outskirts, you probably don't have
Mhm.
recycling. And that ends up being kind of those numbers. And so really started thinking like, man, this is an opportunity. How do I do this? And, do I go get a Suburban and a trailer in every market? Do I get a little like, you know, box truck like I had like a, U-Haul style truck, which is what I was
Mhm.
using to do these things? How do I do this? And had this epiphany one day. I was thinking about how recycling is done in New York City. I had a sister who lived in Manhattan. And if you ever go to New York City and see the recycling, it's all in bags on the street. It's like put bags out on the street, and all the cardboard and gets flattened and like bundled. And I thought, what if what if I did that? What if I didn't do bins? Because the bin, everything's loose. Like, how do you know? Like, only a big like trailer or truck bed or can pick that up, or
Yeah.
garbage truck. But garbage trucks cost like 300 grand, well 300 grand at the time, they're probably like 400 grand now, and every bin costs 50 to 100 bucks in front of your house. It's like, man, that gets really expensive real
Right.
fast. And so decided, hey, what if we did this? What if I used the bags? Like, what if I combined New York style with this way this family was doing it in Mapleton, and they had a baby, and I used gig drivers, and it's like Ubered it
Hmm.
basically, and thought, man, that could work. And so it was Christmas time, and there's always a ton of extra stuff at Christmas, and so we had started doing advertising and getting new customer signups to sign up to just put it in bags. So they'd bag the recycling, we'd do it that way. So at Christmas, I hired my wife's cousins. They drove around in a pickup truck and picked up recycling, and it worked.
Well, and it's brilliant because using a car that's someone's personal vehicle and repurposing that is a lot more sustainable, right?
Totally. I mean, if you look at the carbon footprint of that versus manufacturing a specialty garbage truck, it's crazy. And we're not even talking about things like road damage, which is like exponentially smaller, like literally exponentially smaller. It's like 40x smaller, you know, or 40x lower road damage. And lower road damage, that's, has a huge carbon footprint with the creation of roads. And you look at the emissions, garbage trucks get 2 to 3 miles a gallon. These small vehicles get 20 to 30, you know, all of these things, not even looking at the manufacturing of those vehicles and the fact that if someone's using a personal vehicle for this other use, you're getting just higher utility out of that instead of a specialty vehicle. So way better for the environment, and created more local jobs. Like, we may take our routes take longer than they would with a garbage truck, but the carbon footprint is still lower and we create more local jobs. So pretty cool to see that impact, and just saw that this was something I could scale. So I started looking at other communities and identified, with the help of some interns through the university, identified some communities that we could do this in. My experiment was in December, and we launched our first community doing this like gig style pickup, full like only gig style, in March. And it was about 3 hours away from where I lived. Thought it was close enough that I could save the day if I had to, but far enough away that I wouldn't want to.
Mhm.
And I never had to save the day. It worked. The gig economy model worked. We were able to recruit drivers. Drivers were interested in doing the work, figured out how to pay them effectively, and they did well. And so suddenly it was like, oh man, we can scale this. So I went from March to October. I think I launched in 12 communities. and started growing that from there. And then we went from early 2021 to about 18 months later, we went from 5 states to 30 states.
Man, and that growth has really just allowed you to make a bigger impact, which is awesome. And that's actually what I want to talk about next because I'm most interested in learning about businesses that are not only innovative and successful companies, but are making an impact. So, to dive into that a little bit, I'd love to hear about the impact of Recyclops. Were there any stories that really made your mission and the impact personal?
A lot of these human stories where you see you see that people are extremely passionate. They care about this, and that when you enable them to recycle, they're extremely grateful. And we just have like our customer base is just good people. They're going above and beyond. They're paying extra to do the right thing. People often ask that idea of like, "Oh, what's motivating people to be a customer?" And it's not that they're going to save money on their trash, well, they're going to none of that. It's that they care, that they want to do the right thing. And so many times we have people reach out with gratitude. One of my favorite examples of that, we had someone who commented on Facebook and said, I have always wanted to recycle, but I've never had the chance. I'm so excited. And I thought, man, what the heck? You've never recycled before, but you've like always wanted to? Like, where did that even come from? So I reached out to them personally and was like, hey, I saw your comment. Can you tell me more about that? And they said, I love animals. And I love the earth. And I just felt like this was the next logical step. It's like fascinating. And it's fun to see, as we work with businesses set these goals. They say, hey, I want to be able to recycle. I want to be able to keep things out of the landfill. We have these, corporate social, sustainability goals, and they don't always know how to do it. And so we come in and we solve that problem for them and just like make it easy and provide all the data associated with the impact that they're having. And they just eat it up. They love it. And it's cool to see millions and millions of pounds. We keep millions of pounds every month from landfills.
So your impact is twofold, really. You're diverting all of those pounds from landfills, but you're also enabling people to do the right thing, and that's meaningful as well.
Totally. And I always think about recycling as the gateway drug for
Yeah.
sustainability. It's like the easy thing to do. People want to do the right thing, but they got to get started somewhere. And if recycling can be what starts them into the world of sustainability and sustainable action, then man, it's a really easy starting point. So that's part of our goal there is to really get people started in this world of sustainability. And it works and people care and we try and are hard to make it simple and easy for them. And I think we've done a pretty dang good job of that. It's fascinating to see how much people are able to keep out of the landfill. And one of the things that I think is often lost by people, they think, oh, the reason why we recycle is because it's burying it in the ground is bad. If you ever go to a landfill, if you haven't been to a landfill recently, I highly recommend anyone listening, go take a trip to the dump. You'll pretty quickly you'll be like, wait, this is our solution? Like, this is it. I took my nephews a couple years ago to the landfill. I'd been doing up some remodeling in my house, and there was, some material there that there was no local place to take it but the landfill. So we drove there, and you go there, and my nephews, they'd never been to a landfill, and they said, like, they were shocked. They were literally like, what? This is this is what happens when I put something in the trash can? Like, they were kind of disgusted by that. And the interesting thing about that is the impact is not in that like we're not doing this bad solution. The impact is what we're enabling to happen. So when you recycle a plastic bottle, you're enabling a new bottle to be created out of that same plastic. When you don't recycle a plastic bottle, that plastic has to get drilled out of the earth. That's oil that now needs to get transported to a refinery. It needs to get refined and all of the carbon footprint associated with that refining, and then it needs to go to get trucked or piped again I guess it's usually piped into the refinery and then trucked out to get used. And it's like all of that's happening, huge complex thing when the reality is we could just take the bottle that we already created, grind it up, melt it down, and create a new one. It's like, man, is that not a better solution? And that is where the impact is. The carbon footprint, the environmental impact on, how much water we're wasting, how much emissions we have, how much energy is being going towards this. It is so much better for the earth to recycle versus extract virgin materials and remanufacture. To the point that like you can drive a truck across the country full of recycling and it's still better. You think about all the carbon footprint of driving it everywhere, still better than starting from scratch and extracting oil from the earth to do virgin materials or mining metals or cutting down trees or you name it, whatever material we're dealing with.
Okay, really cool, really fascinating to learn more about recycling. It also just inspired about the way that you went about solving recycling because I've been told since I was in elementary school that recycling is important for the planet. You just kind of helped me understand a little bit better why. But the approach that you took was different was you decided to start a for-profit business. So tell us about that. A lot of people might assume that sustainability or recycling should be a nonprofit space or that the government should pay for it. What made you choose to be a for-profit business?
Yeah, there are a couple reasons. There's some that are, personal financial reasons. There are some that are impact reasons. So, looking at the impact side first, I did not want to build a business that relied on outside factors in order to be successful. I didn't want to do this. Oh, we're going to have recycling free and we're going to have donors and they're going to support. Then your job is to go and chase donors to deal with that. It's like, no, no, no. I want something that can be
Mm-hmm.
self-sustaining. And I think, a corporation, a business is the way to do that more simply than through a nonprofit. Additionally, I saw this opportunity as an entrepreneur to create a positive financial impact in my own life. I think as you start a nonprofit, it's hard to create a positive financial outcome for yourself. There's always this like it's you look at this and say like, oh, this director of this nonprofit is paying themselves too much. Why you're donating to the nonprofit and then the director is making this salary and it's not going to the actual cause and it's like, man, the, the director needs to make some money. They need to support their family. Well, I feel that. I feel that. But if it's a business, that's not even a question. No one worries about that. You're not judged by that. You're not judging yourself by that. And and then at the end of the day, you can build something of value and you can sell that business and have an exit as an entrepreneur. And I think that's also something that is interesting to me is to build something, build a legacy, and then be able to hand it off. And as I hand it off, be able to set up my financial future for myself and my family.
And with that model, you can justify putting a lot more of your time and energy into it, right?
No, totally. I can sacrifice, and I'm the first one. If times are tough, I'm the first one to take a salary cut. I'm the first one to do all these things, and the same probably happens in a nonprofit. But it's harder to justify not going out and getting, call it quote unquote a real job. Whereas when you're doing this, say, no, I have ownership in this business. And if I push through these hard times, eventually it'll be worth it. And that's the trick. And so I feel very strongly that for profit businesses create incentive structures for entrepreneurs to be innovative and solve real world problems in a way that benefits the earth and society but where the motivation is such that they're going to try and expand and have a broader impact because they personally benefit from it more than just like the good feeling that comes with doing good, which is great as well. And so, really feel strongly that there's reasons for nonprofits, certainly. But I think 10 out of 10 recommend having a impact driven business. And we're a certified B Corp. So we've gone through the certification outside certifying body who's looked at Recyclops, seen behind the curtain, and determined that the way that we treat our people, the way that we treat the earth, gets their stamp of approval. And beyond that, we're also our entity type. We're a benefit corp, so we're a public benefit corporation, Delaware Public Benefit Corporation. We're not like a C corp, LLC, whatever. Nope, PBC, Public Benefit Corporation, which means that in our business, we have an obligation to do good. If my board of directors says, no, it's cheaper to throw it in the landfill, throw it in the landfill for a few months, I have the ability to say no. That is against our charter as a business. And we have an obligation to do good as a business. And no one could force us to do otherwise. No one's tried to force us to do otherwise. But I like, showing that not just, because we care, but legally we are obligated to live by our mission.
What's the hardest lesson that you've learned since starting Recyclops?
Oh man, it is so hard. I have cried so many tears because of my business. So many. Oh man, it's hard to start a business. And it is so fulfilling. It is worth it. I still, even though it has caused me immense pain and heartache, I recommend it. When I think about what are things that I would do differently, number one is hire someone who does financial planning and analysis. It is without a doubt that is like my number one recommendation. Is your accountant is going to lie to you. You're going to have an accountant and they're going to be a CPA and they're going to say, "I can do this for you." And they can. They're capable human beings. Maybe technically they can. They can't. They won't. They'll just do accounting. And even though technically they know, they maybe know technically how. They have the ability to do it. That is not what they do, and they will not do it. And I've had multiple accountants. We had an outside accountant who's like, "Oh, they can do it." And we had an inside, controller. "Oh, I can do it." We had no, none of you can do it. My older brother's an entrepreneur, and he told me, "Oh, you got to do this," and I did not listen, like an idiot. I wasted millions of dollars by not making this choice. The only reason why Recyclops is alive today, not only, but the Recyclops would be dead today if I did not hire someone to do FP&A when I did. Without a doubt. There is zero doubt in my mind that we would be dead. They came in and they discovered things that it's like, man, how did no one else see this? How did I not see this? And they uncovered things and they helped us set up a plan for the future, and it changed everything. Oh my gosh. I cannot emphasize it enough that you can't do it day one, but man, it is so essential. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest one that I would say. And then another big piece of advice I'd say is like you're eager, maybe it's the other side. You're always going to be eager at first to like hire other people. Wait. Wait. Hire people as slowly as you possibly can. It's so easy to overhire. So easy to overhire. Do it yourself as long as you can.
So, this is turning into a masterclass on two things: entrepreneurship and also social impact. And it's amazing to me how well those two things go together.
They're made for each other. It's crazy to think that the world hasn't been doing impact first businesses always. Like it is the way to do business, in my opinion.
As we wrap this up, what would you say to someone who's wanting to make an impact or start a business? What's your advice?
Two things come to mind immediately. One is do it. The only thing standing in your way is you. People get so scared to talk about their ideas. I don't want anyone to steal my idea. No one's going to steal your idea. You're not even going to do your own idea. You think they are more passionate about your idea than you are? Talk about it, get feedback, and then do it. Jump in with 2 feet, go for it, figure it out. Don't risk your family, whatever, but there are ways to do it and to like go for it. And then I would say the other thing is be prepared to be resilient. You will find it difficult. The number of entrepreneurs who have just, had it easy is, you know, few to none. If you read these stories about entrepreneurs and you read their biographies, there's always these near death experiences, these huge stresses, these I almost didn't make payroll, I made it by an hour, and they all have the stories. I have those stories, unfortunately, more than once. But resilience, I feel so much so that the number one way to build a big business is to survive. If you survive long enough and you're pushing towards that goal, like you're going to get it. And so be resilient, adapt, and just do it.
Love it. I'm inspired by this, not only related to entrepreneurship and social impact, but also I've been inspired to recycle more, and I hope other people are as well. And you do a lot of education on that, recyclops.com, on social media. Where else would you point people that want to get involved?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn and just Ryan Smith Recyclops, you'll find me. Ryan Smith's a tough one, but Recyclops, that'll make it easy. And Ryan at recyclops.com, you can shoot me an email. I'm always looking to do more and connect with people who are impact driven and want to drive things forward. There's so much to do in this space, and especially if you work for a business, there's huge opportunities to make an impact in those businesses. We want to do more in that space, certainly more in the household residential level. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you don't have recycling in your community, hit me up. If you don't know what to do with a certain material and you want to know, hit me up. If your business is manufacturing something or has waste, you're looking at the dumpster and thinking, man, we're emptying that 5 days a week and it has all this stuff in it, hit me up. Would love to help you figure that out and do some good in the world and help Recyclops continue to move onward and upward.
Thanks for listening. Wasn't that fantastic? Thank you again to Ryan for that inspiring story and those incredible insights. A few key takeaways for me personally. One is that business is just seeing a problem and solving it. And a lot of the times, I think we see a social issue or a sustainability issue, and we think that that needs to be a nonprofit or government solution. But for-profit business models provide really powerful incentives that can allow someone to make a really big impact and solve key problems. Second key takeaway, if there's an idea that you have or a problem you're thinking about solving, I love what Ryan said. Learn everything you can, talk about it, get feedback, and just dive in. And if you're willing to be resilient, then you'll find a way to make it happen. I'm also inspired to recycle more and take better care of the planet. Just an incredible story. If you found this really valuable, please share it. The whole goal of me starting this show is to share these inspiring stories with as many people as possible. Also, if you know of a business leader who's doing good in the world, please send them my way. I'd love to meet more people like Ryan Smith. Stay tuned for more stories of business leaders doing good. Thanks again.